What is up, everybody? My name is BobaTalks. Welcome to my Flash episode 6 review, When Harry Met Harry. Now, this episode was actually a really good episode. It was my most anticipated episode overall from the season so far, and it was actually my most enjoyable episode, mainly because of the Council of Wells, but also because we got a lot of character development with Ralph that turned him from a bit of a jackass into a character that I'm really starting to love now. But before I get into my review, guys, if you want to hear more of my reviews or more of my thoughts and never want to miss out on one of them, be sure to hit that bell button to enable notifications for the channel to make sure you never miss out on a single Flash review. Now, at the beginning of the episode, we got that mugger going after Ralph and Barry, and everyone is saying that this is the same mugger from season 1. I'm actually not too sure about that because I don't remember that, because I haven't seen season 1 in a little while now. Supposedly it's the same mugger as when Barry was, first trying out his powers. But this is what I mean about the Flash's new comedy tone, which I'm not totally down to earth with. As I always said, disclaimer, I do like a lot of the comedy this season. Stuff like Harrison Wells and Cisco stuff, even Team Flash stuff that Caitlin contributes to, even Barry stuff. But there's some stuff like this which I just don't know, it's just a bit of a piss take with how much they're dragging it along. So, for example, the mugger was just standing there and waving it around for a while, and they were just talking so much, and I was just like, really? I get the comedy in this show, and I like it, but I also miss the serious vibe from season 2 and season 3, which didn't have too many moments of this. So bottom line, I do love the Flash's comedy and the humor, but moments like this where it's a bit exaggerated and it goes on for a little long, I don't feel like it has a place in this show for a fan like me. I mean, I don't mind it, but it's just like, come on, guys. And also something else I didn't really agree with this mugger. Barry just took him to hospital with no suit on, with no, identity concealment. You could argue as a fan, if you really want to use comic book logic, I guess, to the very bitter end, that I guess he's just been shot twice, so obviously he might not be remembering how he got to the hospital. He might just turn up there in shock or whatever. But still, no, I feel like the Flash TV show writers messed up there. I feel like that shouldn't have been included. And then the next thing we saw in the episode was the Thinker and his wife, or at least the lady who's posing as his wife. And I want to get into that, but I can't get into that until my trailer breakdown, so keep an eye out on the channel for that. I just liked how they were demonstrating some of the Thinker's absolute mad processing power in his brain. I mean, think of the most amazing computer on planet Earth and then times that by 1,000. That is what he was doing, because in this episode he was anticipating all the arguments that he was having with his, I'm just going to say wife, at that part of the episode, and he anticipated all several thousand different variations of that argument. And the emphasis on this part of the episode is more just about how Team Flash were very close to finding out, who Clifford DeVoe is, or just the first part of DeVoe's name being Clifford. And then I guess after that, Team Flash going after him and then probably trying to take him away. But we learned later in the episode that wasn't the case, but I'm going to save that till towards the end of this video. DeVoe's wife was getting very, agitated by the fact that it's kind of maybe a bit sooner than expected, but the Thinker was absolutely confident in everything ending up to be in his favor and in his victory. So that just shows you how confident the Thinker is with all of these calculations he's made. I mean, the whole part of this season, right, with the Thinker versus Barry is that he's like a gazillion steps ahead. So I really like the Thinker. I know a lot of people haven't had faith in him so far compared to speedster villains, but I've been rooting for him ever since, I theorized that he could be the season's villain for this season, way back in last season, and I think, especially with the promo for next episode, shit is going to get real. And then we're back into therapy, but thank God it isn't for Iris and Barry, because I guess, I don't know if you already realized, I wasn't a massive fan of that kind of comedy they were putting into the show. That kind of takes me back to the first point I made in this review. That kind of comedy, I feel like, is a bit too over-exaggerated, but they actually used it for a thing here because Ralph was obviously trying to remember who was on the bus, the bus full of metahumans that got affected by the dark matter wave from Barry coming back from the Speed Force. Now, we did get a nice take back to last episode because Ralph remembered the Weeper, but he also remembered Black Bison. Obviously, he doesn't know it's Black Bison at this point, but in this episode, that reminds me, we got a new metahuman, Black Bison, and I have to say, she wasn't the standard boring metahuman. I thought, actually, to be honest, the Flash this season so far, the weekly villains, I know all these metahumans are lining up to be a bit more important because they're all ending up at Iron Heights, and it seems that's a part of the Thinker's plan, but I do have to say, like, Flash, TV show or TV writers, whoever, you're doing a great job of bringing metahumans that have a bit more substance to them this season. They're not necessarily boring. I know I always use this example, but metahumans like the Shade and other metahumans like that back in season 2 or season 3, they even though they were comic book villains, they didn't feel like that on the show. They didn't feel like they mattered, or it always felt like, Barry was gonna kick their ass at the end of the day. And Black Bison, yes, even though Barry did apprehend Black Bison alongside Ralph in this episode, I felt like she was an interesting villain. I also really liked her story, and even though she was a villain, I understood what she was doing. In this episode, she was going around getting artifacts back for her people, so she obviously, you shouldn't go around stealing, but at the same time, it wasn't just a random villain just doing everything for nothing with not an exact great explanation. Also, her powers are really cool, bringing inanimate objects to life, actually specifically statues or effigies. That made things very interesting in this episode because she brought like a suit of armor to life, a massive saber-toothed cat, I can't remember if that was the very cat, but either way, it was a goddamn cat. A freaking Tyrannosaurus Rex, which was really, really cool, and I'll get onto that a little bit later, but I may have missed one out, but yeah, that was a really cool superpower and a really cool villain, so I really loved that about this episode. Now let's talk about the Council of Wells, or should I say the Council of Incompetence. It was so good. This is what I was looking forward to most in this episode. It was absolutely brilliant. Now we had 3 Harrison Wells in Star Labs, unless you want to count the 4th, Wells the Grey, which was absolutely brilliant and is probably, quite possibly, my most favorite Wells, even though we only saw 2 seconds of him. I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan, and how would you not like Wells the Grey? That was just fantastic. Also, to not seem hypocritical to my first point in the episode, this comedy really does fit The Flash because it's just Harrison Wells. It kind of fits the storyline a bit more with what they're doing. There's different Harrison Welleses around the multiverse, and it's not longed out, especially with the Wells the Grey. That was a very short thing. That was quite far-fetched, but at the same time, short but sweet. Whereas at the beginning of the episode, that mugger thing was, dragged out, and I don't really need to repeat myself, but that's the differences as to why I like different comedies better than others in this show. So primarily we had Earth 12 Harrison Wells. I believe he was called Harrison Wolfgang Wells, and I loved his comment about why are we even here deliberating all of this when the multiverse is just gonna end in a massive fiery death or something like that. We had Earth 47 billionaire inventor H. Lothario Wells. He was really funny. There was quite a couple of funny moments with him, but I don't want to go on too long about this because I want to get on to other parts of the review. And then we had Wells 2.0 from Earth 22, which is like this post-apocalyptic world where machine and man became one to survive. I thought the Council of Worlds was absolutely brilliant. All the comments and everything like that were funny. It started off a bit rough, and that's actually how I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be used as a comedy thing because it didn't seem like it was going to work out with them trying to crack the identity of the Thinker, but they actually came together towards the end of the episode. Cisco, I really like the Cisco Harry moments in this episode. They are literally, our version, the Flash's version of Rick and Morty, but I guess Harry not being as much of a dick as Rick, but still, he made Harry realize a few things about himself, that he has to like himself, and that he's more similar to the other Wells than what he thinks, rather than being a band of fools. Cisco's had moments like this with other Harrison Wells, like HR, where he just plays a good role in he just bonds with Harry. He bonds with any HR Wells or Harrison Wells. He plays that pivotal role, and only a role that Cisco could play to a Harrison Wells, which I really loved in this episode, and they put across very well. And I really love in this sort of motivation speech thing Cisco did in this episode, that Harry Potter reference, is like, sometimes you're a wizard, Harry. And thank God it wasn't all down to Earth 22 Wells 2.0, because he had the idea of get every DeVoe we can find and interrogate him, especially the baby DeVoe. I was like, oh my God. Also, I noticed that Earth 22's Wells 2.0 mentioned something about his quantum cerebral chip might having to do something towards this whole effort to finding out who the Thinker is. I'm wondering, will we see the Council of Wells again? Because Savitar back in season 3 did say this is where we came up with the cerebral inhibitor to stop DeVoe. So maybe, I don't know, it's just a coincidence, but maybe we can get something off Earth 22 post-apocalyptic Wells 2.0 to do with his cerebral chip. I don't know. That's just a random thought out there. Now let's talk about Ralph for a second. I didn't necessarily like him massively towards the beginning of this show. Like, I knew that was a deliberate thing, but this isn't a strange thing for me because even though this is slightly different, I really didn't like Wild Dog towards the beginning of Arrow Season 5, but now I really like him. And I didn't like Ralph towards the beginning of this, but I know that's kind of what the TV writers wanted to get across to us. I mean, he was a bit of a jackass scumbag, so he wasn't a likable person by definition, I guess you would say, even despite him being the elongated man one day. But even up to this episode, I was just still like, man, I just don't like this guy, and I don't know how much longer I want to see him in this show, to be honest, if he's going to keep acting this way. But no, this is something that they do brilliantly, whether it's actors or just the writing. This is a guy who isn't the elongated man yet, despite him having that ridiculous suit and having a suit in general and trying to be a superhero through Barry teaching him. He has got a lot of lessons to learn from being a very self-absorbed, self-motivated, only caring about himself. I just realized I probably described the same definition across 3 different things. But yeah, that was Ralph before all of this. He was a scumbag, and they put that across to us very well in the season so far. But in this episode, Barry was trying to teach him that, you know, you sometimes have to let the bad guy get away because, you know, you have to save people who might become collateral damage, and that is not what a hero is being about. But Ralph was all about saying, you know, but you let the bad guy get away. Throughout this episode, Barry was getting his ass absolutely handed to him, but that was very deliberate, so, you know, the center of the stage could be put towards Ralph, or the elongated man, if you will, to make those pivotal decisions in the moment. And there was this one moment where Ralph didn't want to let Black Bison get away, but Barry, who was temporarily disabled, said, you know, don't let, you know, these people get hurt with the power lines or whatever it was. Something was going on over there, but Ralph was still focusing on getting the bad guy because that's what he did as a cop. This is what I mean, very self-absorbed jackass of a person. And as a result, this little girl nearly got killed, and potentially others nearly got killed as well. And she actually ended up in hospital. And throughout this episode, this really haunted Ralph, and he learned a very valuable lesson. And it's as if his personality has majorly shifted, and it is really one of those things in the shows where the actor was obviously truly acting as a jackass, but there really is this evolved personality of him that he already had nailed down or had an idea of what it'd be like way before, you know, he knew that he had to be a jackass before he became a good guy. And I'm completely on board with this new good guy Ralph, because that scene at the end of the episode just made me fall in love with Ralph, to be honest. He went and visited that girl, and he was making his hands into balloon animals and stuff like that, and it just was brilliant. And I feel like I'm really going to enjoy Ralph from here on out. Sure, he's a bit of an edgier guy than normal, but I actually like that about his personality. But with that in combination of jackass and self-absorbed douchebag, that was not like anything likable. But now he's really learned a valuable lesson, and I really can't wait to see more from this new Ralph from here on out in the show. Now let's talk about the end of the episode. The Council of Wells found out DeVoe's first name, Clifford, and they knew where his address was. So Team Flash went to his address, and I really liked the moments where Caitlin was just like Snow and Frost standing by. And lo and behold, everyone turns up. You know, you got Harry outside with his trusty gun, you got Cisco and Caitlin standing by, and then you had Joe and Barry at the front door of Clifford DeVoe's house. And who opens the door? None other than Clifford DeVoe's supposed wife. And then we actually got Clifford DeVoe coming to the door as well in his wheelchair, and he just seems like an ordinary nice guy. Now I really love this in the episode, and I really love that they're actually making him look different from his thinker self, like dramatically different if you think about the tone of the skin, the engravings on the skin as well. I mean, maybe it's just when he applies the thinker cap he transforms. I don't know, but I'm going to break that down in my trailer breakdown for The Flash, so stay tuned for that. But I'm so glad they actually included this part in the show, because it made us wanting more and more and more for the next episode. So I'm so excited to find out what is next, and that is exactly what every episode should leave you feeling like in any show out there. But overall, guys, great episode. Thoroughly enjoyed it. There was character development with Ralph, which made him from a douchebag superhero into the beginnings of a great superhero to be one day known as the Elongated Man. I freaking loved the Council of Wells, and I want to see more of them, especially Wells the goddamn Grey. But this is where I want to ask what you thought of the episode, guys. So let me know down in the comments below what you thought of it. What did you like? What didn't you like? What did you think could have been better? I try and reply to most comments, so let's try and have a conversation down below. Other than that, guys, if you enjoyed this review, please leave a like on this video, as it really does show your support for the channel. And if you're new to this channel, maybe even consider subscribing to stay up to date with everything Flash. If you want to stay a bit more up to date with me personally, you can do so by following me on social media. The link should be popping up on the screen around here or in the description below. But apart from that, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.